Welcome to How to Survive Divorce Without a Rebound, a Chocolate Coma, or Complete Life Meltdown. I'm Chrissy, an internationally certified divorce coach and mum. If life has handed you a divorce-shaped plot twist you didn't ask for, you're in the right place. Because while I can't make the paperwork disappear, I can help you navigate this chapter without losing your mind, your dignity, or your entire stash of emergency snacks. Each week, I'll help you navigate this chapter with more confidence, clarity, and a lot less overwhelm. So, whether you're listening from the school pickup line, hiding in the pantry for 5 minutes of peace, or taking a walk to clear your head, I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. Today we are talking about something that almost every divorced mother struggles with at some point, and that is boundaries. Specifically, how to create healthy boundaries with your ex when they are being, does this sound familiar? Difficult, controlling, manipulative, emotionally immature. They want to just have conflict or simply just are unwilling to work with you. And when it comes to boundaries with most of us, I don't actually think many of us struggle with knowing what our boundaries should be. I think we struggle with what happens when we enforce them, because most of us know we shouldn't answer texts at midnight, and most of us know we don't want to engage in endless arguments that are disrespectful. The challenge is when we stop doing these things, somebody gets upset, and often that someone is our ex. So today I want to talk about why boundaries are so difficult after divorce and what gets in the way, and then also give you some strategies on how we can create boundaries that genuinely protect our peace. Not because the boundaries will change our ex, but because they change what we allow into our lives. And if you're thinking now, oh, but what if my ex just won't cooperate? Good, because that's exactly who this episode is for. So let's get into it. One of the biggest misconceptions about boundaries is that they're designed to change another person. We think, well, okay, if I set a boundary, he'll stop doing what he's doing that's annoying. If I explain it clearly enough, he'll understand. Or maybe if I just communicate it a little bit better, he'll finally cooperate. But boundaries aren't about controlling somebody else's behaviour. They're about deciding how we will participate. That's it. A boundary isn't something like us saying, you must not ignore my messages and requests about the children as you're getting more and more frustrated, because you can't control their behaviour and their response. A boundary is more like, if you ignore my messages, I will continue to make decisions about the children without your consultation. Do you see the difference? One's about controlling them and the other is about managing yourself. And I think this is where many women get stuck, because we're still secretly hoping the boundary will actually change the other person. And sometimes, rare occasion, it does, but often it doesn't. And that's where the real work begins. So the first truth I'll share is this: boundaries require acceptance. This is probably the hardest truth of all. Healthy boundaries require acceptance, not approval, not agreement, but acceptance. What sort of acceptance? Well, acceptance that your ex may never become the co-parent you'd hoped they'd be. Acceptance that they may continue to be difficult, they may continue to create conflict. Acceptance that they may continue to tell stories about you that aren't true, and that they may not validate your experience, and that they may not change. And I know that's all very hard. I've struggled so deeply with these realities myself, because many of us spend years trying to improve the co-parenting relationship, trying to communicate better, more accommodating, be more understanding, trying to find that magic formula, that one conversation that will finally make everything click, and then you'll become friends again. But sometimes there just isn't a magic formula. Sometimes there is only reality. And reality is where your power begins. It's a bit like asking a 5-year-old to explain tax law. At some point you have to accept they're 5, they're doing the best they can with what they've got, and they're not giving you a detailed tax strategy. And some ex-partners are just like that. Just likening it to the 5-year-old's brain. Some 5-year-olds are even more clued up. You keep going back, hoping they'll provide emotional maturity or accountability or cooperation, and every time you leave disappointed. And it's not because you asked for too much, but because you're asking somebody for something they may not be capable of giving. Acceptance sounds passive, I know, but it's actually incredibly powerful, because once you stop arguing with reality, you can start making decisions based on what is, not based on what you wish it was. And often once we start accepting that reality, another challenge appears. Yay! One that many mothers don't even realize they're facing, and that is the people pleasing. So the truth number 2 is that boundaries feel cruel when you're used to people pleasing everybody. Many women listening to this have spent decades being the peacekeeper or the organizer, the fixer, the emotional manager, the one who smooths things over, the one who makes things work, the one who carries everyone else's feelings. And those skills probably served you well for a very long time. They did for me until they didn't. Because after divorce, those same habits can become the reasons boundaries feel impossible. When you've spent your life keeping everyone comfortable, a boundary feels really uncomfortable. When you've spent your life avoiding the conflict, a boundary feels pretty confrontational, actually. And when you've spent your life keeping the peace with everybody, a boundary feels quite selfish. So here's what often happens. Okay, tell me if this sounds familiar. Your ex sends a message. Maybe it's blaming, maybe it's manipulative. I don't know. Maybe it's about the relationship instead of the children. For me, it was they would ignore my messages or disagree with nearly everything I suggested for the kids. So my old pattern, or the old pattern, is using no boundaries. So what do? You over-explain yourself. You defend yourself. You clarify your points, or you reassure him in different ways and attempt to manage the situation so you don't upset the other person, right? You try to make everything okay by using all these different strategies. And I know this is resonating for so many of you. So then you say, okay, I'm going to put some boundaries in place. So you respond only to the parenting questions. You're factual, you're transactional, no love, no emotion, that's it. And then you spend the next 3 hours wondering if you're a terrible human being because of the way you responded, because it feels so heartless and cold. Does this sound familiar to any of you? And I know that everybody has different types of relationships, so the dynamics will be different, but there will be elements of these sorts of behaviours that will ring true to you. There's always one party who doesn't want to participate or cooperate or is manipulative. And usually they're not the one that's listening to this podcast because they have no issue. They don't see any issue in themselves, so they have no reason to be listening to this podcast. So I can guarantee you, if you're listening to this podcast and it's resonating with you, you are this person that is dealing with the other person who is more controlling and manipulative. And those boundaries often feel wrong before they feel right. And not because they are wrong, but because they're really unfamiliar for people like us. And one of the biggest shifts you can make is recognizing this. You're not responsible for managing your ex's emotions. You're responsible for your behavior, not their reaction. And that distinction changes everything, because suddenly you're no longer making decisions based on whether somebody will be upset. You're making decisions based on whether the behavior aligns with your values. But as I say that, if you can let go of pleasing your ex, there is also still one final challenge that we face. For many mothers, this is the hardest one of all. And once again, I know I say mothers, but oh gosh, I have some dear, beautiful fathers who deal with this too. You cannot save your children from every hurt. It's truth number 3. This is where boundaries become deeply emotional, because often we're not struggling to save our ex, we're struggling to save our children. When your child is disappointed or hurt, when your child's confused, every instinct inside you wants to step in and fix it. That's what mothers do. Once again, mothers, parents, people like us. That's a normal motherly instinct. Once again, also fatherly instinct if you are that sort of father. We protect, we nurture, we rescue. But divorce introduces a heartbreaking reality. Sometimes we cannot protect our children from every consequence of the other parent's choices. And that's incredibly painful. Now, let's be clear. This is not about safety. If children are unsafe, that is completely different. This is about disappointment, broken promises, and the emotional immaturity, or those missed opportunities that your ex-partner repeatedly chooses to not take with your children. The everyday hurts that occur when one parent struggles to show up consistently for the children. Many mothers exhaust themselves trying to compensate. And this is what I did for years. We try to shield and manage. We try to prevent every disappointment that's coming from their father. And while that comes from a deep love in us, it can also come from fear. Fear that our children will suffer and that they'll be hurt. Fear that if we don't step in, everything will fall apart for them. But one of the hardest lessons of divorce is realizing that loving your children doesn't mean you can protect them from every hurt. Sometimes your hurt is not preventing disappointment. Sometimes it's helping them navigate it, helping them process it and learn that they can survive it. And I know this is not easy. In fact, it may be one of the hardest things you'll ever do as a mother, because letting go of that fantasy that you can save everyone means you have to grieve. And it means accepting limits and trusting that your children's resilience is stronger than you think. Before we continue, a quick reminder that if you're going through separation or divorce right now, you don't have to do it alone. My 4-week How to Survive Divorce program helps mothers navigate the survival season with practical tools, weekly live coaching, Q&A support, direct access to me, an internationally certified coach who has personally survived divorce, and a community of women who truly understand what you're going through. I also offer one-on-one coaching if you're looking for more personalised support. You'll find all the details in the show notes or at thisismeChrissy.com. Now, let's get back to the episode. One of the biggest lessons I've learned over the past few years is that my children are not mine to control. They're my children, of course. Yes, I love them fiercely. I will do absolutely anything for them. But they're not mine to protect from every experience, every disappointment, or every lesson life has in store for them. They are their own people on their own journey, and as much as I wish I could, I cannot stop them from experiencing pain. I can't stop them from feeling disappointment when someone they love doesn't show up for them in a way that they need or want. I can't stop them from feeling hurt when expectations aren't met. And if I'm deeply honest with myself, one of the hardest parts of divorce has been accepting that I can't protect them from the reality of who their father is. Not because he's all bad, not because I want them to think badly of him, but because their relationship with him belongs to them, just as my relationship to him belongs to me. And for a very long time, I carried this belief that if I just worked harder or communicated better with him, if I smoothed things over more or compensated more, somehow I could shield them from that disappointment. But eventually I realized I was just trying to do something impossible. I was trying to control an experience that wasn't mine to control. What I can do is love them, listen to them, and support them. I can help them make sense of their feelings, which I do all the time. I can be a safe place for them when they're hurting, and I can show up for them constantly, which I do. I cannot walk their journey for them. And strangely, there was a lot of freedom in this realization, like really painful freedom, but freedom nonetheless, because when we stop trying to save our children from every hurt, we create this beautiful space to teach them something even more valuable, that they are capable of facing hard things and actually surviving them just like us. Why? Because they have us there to back them and support them through it. That's the difference to what I've seen in the past. Building resilience is great, but I don't believe it's building resilience if you don't give that child the support that they need to fall and to feel the pain. Okay, so what do healthy boundaries actually look like? Well, I believe it looks like keeping communication child-focused, responding instead of reacting. Gosh, I did this for years because there was a lot of fear and grief in me that I hadn't processed, and I responded by reacting very quickly, not defending yourself against every accusation, but of course, doing it where it's warranted, absolutely. Not explaining yourself repeatedly. I'm so good at this. And recognizing that a boundary doesn't need a 12-page supporting document. Also something I'm very good at. When I'd make a decision about something, I always felt like I needed to justify my decision. So I would write a huge email explaining. Those are hours I will never get back. Waste of time, I can tell you now. They're a waste of time, not necessary. And at some point, though, we're just no longer communicating, are we? We're just constantly defending ourselves. So a couple of other strategies for healthy boundaries. The first one is the pause. When your ex contacts you, whether it be on text, email, or phone call, don't respond immediately. You do not need to pick up straight away. Let them leave a message. Give yourself a period of grace and pause. I only had to see an email pop up in my inbox to feel a sensation of fire race through my body. I would get a full physical and emotional response with every single message. And often I'd been waiting weeks on end for just one email response. So seeing it pop up, I would get that sudden urge to open the email and respond immediately because I was dying to fix or finish whatever needed to be resolved. And then I used to respond immediately because I didn't want to do the same behavior that he had done, which was ignore and not respond for weeks on end. But then I learnt to pause. It did take me years, but I did learn to pause. And I can still take a day to process and let the strong emotions shift before responding, and that still be respectful communication. So if I had really strong emotions of grief or sadness or anger, that disappointment, when you get that response, it's not what you were hoping for, feel the emotion and let it pass through you. Sometimes it took longer than a day for me, but I started giving myself ample time to calm my nervous system so that I could provide that more rational and balanced response, so that if I wasn't in agreement, I could still share my views with less aggression and defensiveness. And I'm not saying you need to take out any passion from the discussion if you are genuinely passionate and stand by something with conviction, especially if it's related to the well-being of yourself or your children. I'm not saying that. But what I found is when I took the pause, I was very clear on what and how I wanted to say it when I finally did respond. And if you choose to lose the plot on your response, don't beat yourself up about it. Sometimes it's okay to lose the plot. Sometimes people push us to our limit. But as a strategy going forward, I would highly suggest take the pause. Just try it. The final strategy that helps create boundaries for me is to spend time loving myself. And no, it sounds very fluffy, but if you are a people pleaser or have divorced someone who's controlling or manipulative, then chances are the love you have for yourself is going to be potentially not strong enough to stand strong on upholding those boundaries, because the response you get causes you too much pain. And the more you love and value yourself higher than your ex, or anyone for that matter, the more peace and calm that enters your life. So my suggestion would be try this. Write a list of the things your ex does or says that you feel are not okay with your values and you feel that you need a boundary with, but maybe you don't know how to put that in place. And then imagine that you are sitting down with one of your children and they are in the exact same situation with someone that they're facing. They ask your advice. What would you say to them? What would you really say to them? Knowing this is your vulnerable child and you genuinely want the best for them in the long run. Now go and do exactly what you have told them. Try it on and see how it feels. If after your communication with your ex you feel calm and good, great, it worked. If you don't, just ask yourself, do I need to do this again to keep practicing it? Or was it just not quite right? And if not, then change it. Play around with it. Just don't keep doing what you've always done if it hasn't worked. Healthy boundaries are often simple. They're short, they're clear, they're consistent, and most importantly, they are repeated. You have to repeat them again and again and again to get practice doing them. And then once you do, it gets easier. So if there is one thing I want you to take away from today's episode, it's this. Boundaries are not about changing your ex. They're about protecting your peace. They're about deciding what you will and won't participate in, creating enough emotional space for you to heal, and perhaps the hardest part of all, they're about letting go of changing them, fixing them, managing them, and most importantly, they're letting go of saving everyone, because that peace doesn't always come when the other person changes. Sometimes that peace arrives when we finally accept they might not. And from that place of acceptance, we stop fighting the reality and we stop waiting. We stop exhausting ourselves and we start building a life that isn't dependent on somebody else's behaviour. So thank you so much for joining me today. If this episode resonated with you, share it with another woman who needs to hear it. And until next time, remember, you can be compassionate without abandoning yourself, and you can set boundaries without becoming the villain in someone else's story. Lots of love, Chrissy. Thank you so much for being here. If this episode resonated with you, you'll find a summary sheet in the show notes, along with details about my one-on-one coaching and 4-week How to Survive Divorce program if you'd like additional support. If today's episode helped you feel seen or sparked a small step, don't forget to follow or subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. And if there's a woman or mother in your world that needs this kind of support, send this to her, because it might be the reminder, reassurance or support she needs right now. Until next time, be kind to yourself, skip the rebound, leave the chocolate coma behind, and keep taking one step at a time. Lots of love, Chrissy. Just a reminder that everything shared in this podcast is based on personal experience, coaching perspectives, and general wellbeing information. The stories and insights I share come from my own lived experience and are intended to support and encourage you, but every person's situation, relationship, and healing journey is different. What worked for me or for others may not be right for you. This podcast is not medical, psychological, legal, or therapeutic advice, and it's important that you seek support from qualified professionals for your own individual circumstances. Please use your own judgment and take what resonates with you while considering your own experiences, needs, and well-being. If you're struggling emotionally, experiencing severe distress, or feeling unsafe, please contact a mental health professional or emergency support service in your area. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next episode.